Alys Rivers held Daemon's hand to a weirwood and showed him the future. Not his vision, hers. She was never really Harrenhal's healer, and this was never therapy. Not really. For a full season, she was building a weapon out of the Rogue Prince, and in season 3, she fired it. But here's what the fandom missed. She didn't do it by breaking down like a witchy Ramsay Bolton. She did it by becoming the one person he trusted, then used that trust to aim him at his own death and thousands more. 7 dreams, 7 moves, and I'll show you her fingerprints on every one. What this whole video is building to is why someone that Alys seemed to like and helped into being marginally better is someone she's also sending to their doom, spending his life like a coin. The beacons are lit, the fandom calls for aid, and JoeMagician will answer. Daemon's dream adventures in season 2 were, according to fandom pundits, one of the most controversial and least understood plots in House of the Dragon so far. Some parts of the fandom called Harrenhal confusing, aimless, a mess. Even the sharpest minds shrugged at it. And you know what? They were wrong. Every single dream had a purpose, and more importantly, an author. After episodes 1 and 2 of season 3, I finally have enough information to unravel what happened to Daemon at Harrenhal. Daemon didn't go to Harrenhal to be haunted by its ghosts, he went there to conquer it. But by the time he left, Daemon had transformed. His ambition for the crown was gone, his loyalty to his wife, absolute. He reconciled his feelings of rage at his brother. So what happened to him? Alys Rivers happened. The Witch Queen, the Curse of Harrenhal, the Green Seer. Have I claimed other characters have been Green Seers before in House of the Dragon? Famously, yes I have. I have accused Larys Strong of using all the rats we see to spy throughout the Red Keep multiple times. That was a wild YOLO guess that just kept getting evidence, much to my surprise. Here, I am much more certain about the humble healer of Harrenhal, Alys Rivers. She is one of the very few, the 1 in 10,000 of those touched by the old gods who can use the weirwoods and the natural world as their magical tools alongside the likes of Brynden Rivers the Bloodraven and Bran Stark. And here, with Daemon's entire plotline at Harrenhal before me, I have all the proof I need to convince you. She can see into the dreams of the sleeping Daemon, manipulating what the Rogue Prince dreams to her whims. She knows things about the world and Daemon she couldn't possibly know. She's also associated with weirwoods constantly, she has weird control over animals, and most importantly, she's seen with the green men on the Isle of Faces. Nobody can do that. With all of that in mind, let's join Alys in a romp in the mind of Daemon Targaryen. A few clues to let you know when Alys is involved with something. She's often associated with that black goat that keeps showing up, and there's frequently the sound of a horde of bats flying and screaming in the background. Keep your eyes and ears open for both when you're watching back and when you watch in the future, because there's homework waiting for you at the end of this video. Daemon arrives at Harrenhal a confused, angry, bitter man, fresh off his fight with his wife, Queen Rhaenyra. She realized he was responsible for the death of Prince Jaehaerys in the event known as Blood and Cheese, and confronted Daemon about it. The discussion devolved into a screaming match about how Daemon doesn't think Rhaenyra is his equal, that the crown should be his, and he leaves on Caraxes with the possibility of never returning. Certainly Rhaenyra questions if she'll ever see her husband again. He's racked with guilt over his actions and their fight. However, part of Daemon still believes he was right to do what he did. He makes the hard choices. That he's the true heir over Rhaenyra, that it should have been his crown all along, and that he's the only one that has the strength and the desire to rule. As Alys Rivers later describes him accurately, when you came here, you were a closed fist, wished to bend the world to your will. What happens next is a chess game played inside a man's skull. 7 dreams, 7 moves orchestrated by Alys. And here's move 1. Daemon's nightmares begin the first night he sleeps in Harrenhal's weirwood bed. He wakes to find somebody in suspicious black boots slamming against his chamber door. He leaps up and tries to follow the figure through the castle. Instead, he finds young Rhaenyra cradling Prince Jaehaerys, sewing the child's head back onto his body while telling Daemon, "She's always cleaning up after you." Daemon's eyes tear up, and then he awakens standing before the Harrenhal heart tree, staring right into the face. Somehow, Alys Rivers is already waiting before warning him that he will die in this place. It almost looks like she's been watching him through the weirwood eyes itself. The dream perfectly summarizes Daemon's state of mind. We find out later that the black boots belong to his nephew Aemond, whose arrival on the massive Vhagar could end Daemon's life at any moment. Young Rhaenyra represents both his guilt over blood and cheese and the resentment he still carries from being passed over in favor of his niece, whom he still perceives as a child. The uncharacteristic tears on Daemon's face makes clear that beneath the swagger, the rogue prince is really a mask over a man burdened by guilt, shame, and jealousy. These exact wounds Alys Rivers begins exploiting. On to Dream 2. The next night, Daemon dreams of a young Rhaenyra sitting the Iron Throne wearing Viserys' crown. She yells to him from atop the throne, accusing him of creating her only to destroy her because Viserys loved her more than him. Rhaenyra is using High Valyrian to deepen the intimacy of the confrontation using their private language of love. She walks down to confront him and Daemon beheads her, but the severed head keeps talking, while Daemon racks in despair with tears and bloody hands at what he's done. The dream forces Daemon to confront the heart of his conflict with Rhaenyra. He imagines himself taking the throne and the crown for himself, yet killing her changes nothing. Instead of satisfaction, he's horrified by what his impulses have led him to do. His internal conflict over his feelings of affection is at odds with his desire for power. That guilt immediately spills into his waking decisions. When Oscar Tully refuses to speak for his infirm grandfather, Lord Grover Tully, to rally the Riverland armies for Rhaenyra, Daemon pressures Oscar Tully to hasten Grover's death so that he can inherit, mirroring the violent solution to power he chose in the dream. These visions aren't just random horror scenes meant for shock value. The impact of them is changing how Daemon behaves. Our next dream, the mysterious figure in black boots returns, again approaching his door then walking away. Daemon gives chase, armed with his sword, but when Daemon catches up to Aemond, he discovers that he's staring at himself wearing Aemond's eyepatch. The symbolism here is blunt. The monster Daemon fears most is actually himself. Aemond reflects Daemon's own ambition, brutality, and belief that strength alone justifies rule. He is his own worst nightmare, and a symbol of Daemon's insecurity about if he would be actually a good ruler. His failures are his own making, over and over. Immediately afterwards, the figure turns to leave and Daemon continues the chase to find himself in Alys's workshop. The vision of Aemond conveniently leading Daemon through the maze of Harrenhal right to Alys, who seems unbelievably unsurprised that Daemon is chasing somebody through the night with a sword coming right to her. Again, curious how that happens. There's a lot of really strange things that happen around Alys that she just seems to expect. After some conversation about if she's an owl or not, Alys confronts him about Rhaenyra, how he is serving the girl who replaced him as heir, and whether part of him really enjoys seeing Rhaenyra's claim challenged. She even points out that, for some reason, Daemon's not sending ravens back to Dragonstone. You may notice that she's describing the exact themes and information of Daemon's dreams and his marriage with impossible accuracy. There's no such thing as Westeros TMZ. Nobody else knows that Daemon and Rhaenyra are having problems. Just Alys. Either she's the world's greatest spy master and the greatest reader of human nature ever in Westeros, or as I claim, she's been seeing the dreams herself. After Alys gives Daemon a suspicious red concoction that I think is weirwood paste, Daemon then blacks out and awakens an unknown time later in the Great Hall in a meeting he can't remember. He immediately begins seeing visions of his long-dead wife, Laena, even while awake. First, she appears during his meeting with Willem Blackwood. Daemon has been hugely unsuccessful in his attempts to raise the Riverlanders for his side. He has called for Willem Blackwood, recognizing that he is at least fighting on his side against the Brackens. They forge a deal, though. If Daemon will help Willem attack the Brackens, the Blackwoods will join their side. During this, Laena is pouring drinks for the table until Daemon snaps out of it, revealing it's just a nervous serving woman. From this point on, Daemon begins hearing and seeing apparitions even while he's awake. Next, the most troubling of all his dreams, and the one for sure designed for shock value. It's his dream of sleeping with his mother, Alyssa Targaryen. The initially unknown woman has passionate sex with Daemon while she praises him as the stronger son, the better warrior, the one who should have worn the crown. It's everything Daemon has always wanted to hear. Then he notices the blood on his hands and realizes this naked woman beneath him is his own mother. How very Targaryen of him. But the message here is not just the shock that it's Alyssa, the horror is the message. Alys takes every belief Daemon has about why he deserves the throne and twists it into something grotesque. His philosophy that strength justifies anything is as unnatural as the dream itself. The blood on his hands also reflecting the atrocities committed by the Blackwoods in his name, a stain Daemon can no longer ignore. In a previous scene, Daemon had unleashed the Blackwoods against the Brackens, instructing them to do whatever they had to get the Brackens to submit. A wink and a nod saying, the women and children are on the table. Alys reiterates this in person, scolding him for unleashing horrors on the innocents of the Brackens for his own desire for power. She confronts him further when asking if Rhaenyra approved of his methods, probing the exact sore spot she knows well, sending him into a rage about how he should be king over his weak female wife. Alys haunts the unconvinced Daemon, saying it's a pity he never knew his mother, an overt confirmation that Alys has seen his dreams and is using them against him to shape his thoughts. That line makes no sense otherwise. The message to you as the audience. They're asking you a question. How does Alys know about that detail? How does she know he just dreamed about his mother? Laena returns again as another reiteration of Alys's admonishment of Daemon. Laena reappears and asks if he's cared for their daughters while warning of the terrible war consuming the Riverlands. Now this happens while Daemon is learning that the Riverlords will not serve him, saying, dragon or no, we shall not raise our banners for a tyrant. This is exactly as Alys had been telling him would happen. His reckless power grab has backfired immediately through his brutal tactics. Laena's message is to remind Daemon of who he is letting be attacked, using his wife and daughters to humanize the victims. As you can tell, Alys was big mad that Daemon authorized the Blackwoods to go destroy the Brackens. So it is increasingly clear that these dream figures are Alys herself, and they tend to explore the exact same lessons and advice that she gives Daemon. These conversations and dreams have the same purpose. They're forcing Daemon to confront the human cost of his decisions through people he loves. By using Laena's ghost, Alys reaches the compassionate side of Daemon that arguments about strategy and being an upright man never could. And stay with me, because everything up to this point is the version the show wants casual viewers to walk away with. Alys, the helpful witch, therapy for a broken prince in a slightly confusing way. Back half of where this video is going is where you find out what it's for and what the cost of it is. Our next dream changes drastically. Alys moves on from using Rhaenyra as a tool and goes after the core hurt at the heart of Daemon, his dead brother Viserys I. Daemon enters the throne room, sees his brother on the throne, and relives the day Viserys disinherited him. Viserys is yelling about how Daemon has betrayed him and his comments about the heir for a day. Viserys' newborn son Balon that died only a day after his birth and the death of the Queen Aemma Arryn. Daemon was not there. In the real memory, Daemon argues back and attacks Viserys for being a weak king. But this time, given another chance at this memory, Daemon doesn't argue. He doesn't attack Viserys. He doesn't try to defend himself. He simply breaks down crying with his brother, ashamed of what he has done. When Daemon tries to leave as the pain gets too great, the doors of the Great Hall refuse to open. Unlike he did in the original memory, Daemon can't run away this time. That's the point. Running has always been the answer. Alys traps him inside of his greatest regret until he finally confronts the pain instead of escaping it. Daemon wakes up horrified, gathers his things, and goes to leave. When he threatens to leave Harrenhal for good, Alys, who was waiting for him in the Godswood, immediately calls him out, listing every place he's fled in his life, including Pentos and the Stepstones, details of his life he has never shared with her. Daemon initially tries to deny the supernatural affecting him, but eventually cannot, and starts listening to Alys even as she lectures him. Daemon is not somebody who takes advice. Previously, Daemon would have never listened to anyone about his relationship to Viserys and Rhaenyra, going so far as to choke Rhaenyra when she tries to. Now he sits and absorbs Alys's key points. Perhaps that's why your brother gave the crown to her. Perhaps those who strive for it are the least suited to wear it. Do not lecture me. Viserys never wanted it himself. It came to him and he did his best. It's not a prize to be won, but a burden to bear. As with most of Alys's lectures, hold on to that message. It'll be coming back real soon. And again, look at Alys demonstrating knowledge of a person she has never met in Viserys, and accurately describing the relationship between these two brothers, things she should not know. And this unlocks a new point in the relationship between Alys and Daemon. Daemon unbelievably asks Alys for help, admitting that he's in over his head at Harrenhal. This is the same guy who 1 episode ago railed against Rhaenyra for not being a man, being weak, not being good enough to lead because she lacks man bits. And here he's asking a low-born woman he just met for help. Feminist icon Daemon Targaryen. Alys is amused at this and agrees, telling him to do nothing, to wait 2 days when the winds will change. She also has an owl randomly fly to her arm. Now, this isn't really for Daemon except to confuse him a little bit more about the magic. It's for you. It's for the audience as a hint as to what she is. A skin changer and a green seer. If you think back, we've seen this trick before. Skin changers can often control animals without a word. The Stark children in particular did this a lot. Next, Alys changes tacks with Daemon. Instead of reliving another nightmare, Daemon receives something far kinder. He finds Viserys grieving over his dead queen Aemma. Daemon, who was not there for his brother in his grief and time of need, gets a second chance to be a good brother. He hugs Viserys and finally says the words he never spoke to him in life. I'm sorry, you needed me. I'm here now. This time, Daemon does not run for the door. He cherishes this supernatural do-over. He wants to stay in this moment with his brother. When he wakes unexpectedly in the Great Hall of Harrenhal, he learns that Grover Tully has died. Daemon doesn't celebrate, though, that this obstacle has been removed from his path. After Simon Strong leaves, he quietly cries. Part of that grief comes from finally reconciling with Viserys in his own mind. But Grover has become a stand-in for his brother in his mind. Think about it. Another old lord, he's infirm, his health is failing, and his death advances Daemon's ambitions. The connection Alys has been building finally lands. For perhaps the first time in his life, Daemon truly feels the cost of gaining power. Instead of seeing his brother's death as an opportunity for gain, he mourns him. Now, Daemon still has to face Alys's dream lessons in the real world. That comes with new Lord of the Riverlands Oscar Tully, who is none too happy that his grandfather suddenly died in a very convenient way for Daemon, especially when the healer who was tending to him all of a sudden was Alys Rivers herself, traveling all the way from Harrenhal to help. Despite Oscar promising to honor the oath of his grandfather to Rhaenyra, the River Lords don't. They condemn Daemon still, as does Oscar, insulting Daemon to his face and challenging the Rogue Prince to bring justice to Blackwood for his horrific crimes. This exact scenario would have made Daemon run away, lash out at Oscar, or perhaps bring Caraxes to bring this uncomfortable scenario to a quick end. Now though, after all he's been through, Daemon holds his temper, takes responsibility for his actions, and executes Blackwood to make amends to the River Lords, earning their respect and, more importantly, their armies. This is a level of politics and statecraft that Daemon has found challenging throughout his life. Daemon has one final dream, and it brings back the older Viserys, the one who is dying missing an eye, waiting for Daemon on his weirwood bed when he returns from the Godswood. The waking hallucination of his brother speaks to Daemon, who offers him the crown he's coveted his entire life. I never wanted it. I was right not to. All the pain it caused, it crushes whoever wears it. You always wanted it, Daemon. Do you want it still? Earlier in the season, when Daemon was angry, he would have seized it instantly. Now he hesitates. This dream is the culmination of everything Alys has been teaching him. The crown isn't a prize to win, but it's a burden to bear. He should not want it. By reconciling Daemon with Viserys, exposing his jealousy towards Rhaenyra, and showing the consequences of his violence, Alys has transformed the Rogue Prince into someone capable of refusing the thing he previously wanted most. He refuses the crown, and once again, as if on cue, that dreamy temptation becomes real almost immediately. Sir Alfred Broome makes Daemon the same offer in real life. He arrives at Harrenhal on orders from Rhaenyra to find out what Daemon's been up to this whole time, but Alfred has been secretly plotting to usurp Rhaenyra's crown through Daemon, butthurt that he got yelled at. Alys ready for Alfred's offer though, almost like she knew Broome's offer was coming. Alfred repeats everything Daemon's mother said to him, everything Daemon said in his dreams about why he should be king over Rhaenyra. This is the final test of Daemon Targaryen. Broome offers to rally Rhaenyra's vassals to his cause instead, crown him king of the Seven Kingdoms, and depose his wife. Now again, every dream Daemon has had has led to saying no in this moment. Like Alys has been working backwards from this conversation to prepare Daemon to refuse. And like the good pupil he is, Daemon instead accuses Broome of being a traitor and wordlessly refuses while walking away. Daemon has passed Alys's test. That's not just coaching, that's checkmate for Alys. 7 dreams built backwards from a conversation she has already seen. Alys isn't done with him. Now instead of appearing to Daemon in his dreams, Alys shows up in person, dropping the disguises. Sits at the end of his bed with a frown and tears in her eyes. When asked if she ever sleeps, Alys gets up and declares she's going to the Godswood with tears running down her cheeks. Daemon, with a surprising look of empathy on his face, follows. While walking up to the tree, a legendary green man of the Isle of Faces is shockingly seen walking behind the weirwood before disappearing. Just to put us in context, the green men are never seen. They're like the Westerosi Bigfoot. The appearance of one of the green men is a sign important of what's about to come. Alys walks Daemon up in front of the weirwood face, exactly where she found him in the first night. She says, "When you came here, you were a closed fist, wished to bend the world to your will. But you've discovered, I think, this world not to be governed. There are omens here for those who seek them. You do not scoff?" Daemon replies, "I'm no longer inclined to," a sheepish, defeated tone. Alys then says, "I'm pleased to hear it. Do you wish to learn then what is given to you? All your life you sought to command your own fate, but today you are ready." Alys's little laugh after she says, "I'm pleased to hear it," is just fantastic. Little confirmation or celebration that she's gotten to the Rogue Prince at last. All her tricks and dreams and mysterious red drinks have worked. Daemon believes in the magic of Harrenhal, but Alys Rivers in particular. He now listens to her, goes where she leads, believes in her wisdom. Alys takes his hand, and while holding his arm, guides it onto the weirwood face and into the red sap leaking from the eyes. Daemon's eyes dilate and he sees these images. The three-eyed crow, blood raven, a white walker and its undead horde, dead dragons, a battlefield of corpses. Daemon falls off the battlefield into a black body of water and begins to drown. Next he sees a red comet, the 3 dragon eggs in a pyre, and Daenerys Targaryen, the mother of dragons with her newborns. And finally, Rhaenyra Targaryen on the Iron Throne wearing her father's crown. Then shockingly, his niece Laena cuts in, appearing to Daemon in this space saying, "It's all a story, and you're but one part in it. You know your part. You know what you must do." Daemon then wakes up and takes his hand off the weirwood in shock. Watching again the scene of Daemon touching the weirwood, 2 things stand out to me. The first is the obvious similarity to Bran Stark in A Game of Thrones. He fully unlocks his powers in a similar way to what we saw Daemon just do. He pressed his hand on the face of a weirwood tree and began experiencing similar flashes of images. He sees in his visions the Night's King, a white, blood raven's tree, the Iron Throne covered in snow, a dragon over King's Landing, and his father as well, the Winterfell crypts, and many, many ravens. Seems pretty similar to what Daemon saw, right? Should we expect Daemon's eyes to roll back in his head and go white as he starts connecting to the trees and skin changing? I think not, because there is a major difference between Bran's awakening and what happened. Bran does it himself. He reaches up and touches the tree. Daemon has his arm held and pushed forward by Alys Rivers into the tree. She's making contact with Daemon before the weirwood and seems to be a green seer herself already. She's been in his mind and his dreams. And not only that, she's crying before he sees the vision, as if she knows what he's about to see and doesn't want to go through with it. What's going on here is that the vision is not coming from Daemon awakening some kind of latent psychic powers. The vision is Alys's. She's already seen it, and she's sharing it with him through the weirwoods. It seems obvious in retrospect that she has to have seen it before because of what she does to Daemon all throughout season 2. When Daemon arrives in Harrenhal, Alys sees him in the Great Hall, then immediately begins the process of turning Daemon back towards Rhaenyra and getting him the Riverlander armies. She has that goal of getting him ready to refuse the crown before she knows anything about him, and acts on it methodically over and over like a plan she's been thinking about. She even seems to be expecting him before he shows up. All the rest in the castle are shocked to see Daemon Caraxes. She basically has no reaction. The game began for Alys before Daemon ever set foot in Harrenhal. Now, if this is the kind of videos and analysis that you enjoy and want more of, I'm tracking Alys's game every episode of this season, along with a few other things that have caught my attention. She cast her witchy spell on my attention, and I hope yours too. Consider subscribing so that you can come back when she makes her next move. So she's made Daemon into a weapon. How did Alys use him? Watch what Daemon does the moment Rhaenyra arrives. And from here we can see the effect these visions have had on Daemon. When Rhaenyra, alerted by Simon Strong, shows up in Harrenhal, and Daemon has this to say to her. Keep in mind they previously clashed over magic and prophecy. The world is not what we thought it was. The war is just beginning. Winter is coming with darkness and doom. You sound like my father. I saw that we cannot withstand it, and yet somehow we must. The realm's only hope is a leader who can unite it, and my brother chose you. You are the true queen, Rhaenyra, first of her name, protector of the realm. I am meant to serve you and all these with me until death or the end of our story. Mission accomplished, Alys Rivers. She has steered Daemon back towards loyalty for Rhaenyra. She has convinced the guy that previously said, dreams didn't make us kings, dragons did, to be a full-throated believer in magic and prophecy. The question is, why did she do this? What is Alys Rivers getting out of it? The answer is the very same prophecy that Alys showed Daemon in her words to him in episode 2 of season 3. I pointed out previously that everything Alfred Broome tempts Daemon with is everything Alys had Daemon dream and confront. It's like she had seen in advance that conversation and acted to avert it. Alys then also gave Daemon a true vision of the future. We as Game of Thrones fans recognize that the White Walkers do return. The dragons do die out. Bloodraven is the very same character that tutors Bran. The red comet comes overhead, and of course Daenerys hatches the 3 dragon eggs. It's that last image of Rhaenyra on the throne that is the key. The other visions are for you as a viewer, demonstrating the validity of what Daemon is seeing. All of Alys's actions at Harrenhal towards Daemon push him to do 2 things: reconcile with Rhaenyra and deliver her an army that she can use to fight and win the Iron Throne. And it works. The Riverlanders, along with the Winter Wolves led by Daemon and Caraxes, evaporate the Lannister army bearing down on them. It's also Daemon who convinces the grieving Rhaenyra, distraught over the loss of her son Jace, that she must act now. She has to take King's Landing with Aemond and Vhagar gone. Without Alys's help, those things don't happen. What becomes of Daemon on the path he was on when he arrived at Harrenhal? Without Daemon and Caraxes and the Riverlander army and the Winter Wolves, Rhaenyra likely loses this war very quickly, especially if Daemon followed through to crown himself, further fracturing Rhaenyra's support. That makes Alys a huge Rhaenyra and Black stan, right? Using her powers, she course-corrected the Blacks into taking the Iron Throne away from disaster, just as Daemon saw would happen. The truth, however, is a lot more complicated than that. Alys does help the Blacks in this goal, but that doesn't mean she's on their side. As Alys told Daemon in the Godswood, she's just a piece in the game, the same as him. The key comes from episode 2 of this season, where Alys has a conversation with Daemon on the shore of the God's Eye after the Battle of Fishfeet, which, as I pointed out in my last video on the Winter Wolves, check the link here and in the description, may have served as an enormous blood sacrifice to the weirwoods on the Isle of Faces, and maybe Alys too. On the shores of the Holy God's Eye, she tells him that his coming has been an omen of the end of many things and the beginning of others. Now hold on to that exchange. What this line indicates is that Alys isn't done with her schemes and plans from Harrenhal. It's not mission accomplished strung across the Great Hall of Harrenhal like she's some kind of witchy George W. Bush. While Rhaenyra on the throne is an important image that Daemon is pursuing, The others are still far off in the future. The death of the dragons, the return of the White Walkers, the bleeding star overhead, Daenerys hatching her dragons. And we know that she's not done with the story because she does not disappear from the show after achieving the vision of Rhaenyra on the throne. No, we see her continuing to act. We saw her on the Isle of Faces and facing Aemond One Eye. She's not Melisandre walking into the cold after the White Walkers are destroyed. We see in episode 1 that Ulf, Hugh, and Adam, the new dragon riders, are camped on the Isle of Faces, waiting for Aemond to arrive on Vhagar so they can ambush and kill him to end the green threat. A clever move. No Vhagar, no Aemond, the war ends overnight. By the way, black goat sighting, I told you it would keep happening. And the trio see another green man, and then Alys Rivers appears from literally nowhere. Important here to point out some context. No one is allowed on the Isle of Faces. For thousands of years, those who try to reach the island find themselves attacked by hordes of ravens, the winds picking up suddenly, or the currents of the God Eye shifting. It appears that magic keeps people away from it. And then the green men themselves guard the shore of the most sacred place in the world to the children of the forest, where they cast the Hammer of Waters to shatter the Arm of Dorne. And yet, Alys Rivers is free to walk the island like she owns the place. You know what? Maybe she does. Alys continues her manipulations, suggesting that there's a great battle all the way back on Dragonstone, and you know what? The Queen needs them. They need to go back. But how Alys knows the Battle of the Gullet is happening when it's literally a surprise attack? Again, Green Seer, this pattern of prodding using impossible knowledge from Alys. Now she sends the Dragon Riders off the Isle of Faces like they were trespassing back to Dragonstone for the Battle of the Gullet. The effects are twofold. First, while they arrive late to the battle, and it's mostly won, they still contribute. Adam, Hugh, and Ulf clean up the remains of the Triarchy fleet, burning them all. Critically, the Dragon Riders being late meant that Jace got involved, and we saw how that went. The second effect is far more important. These brand new Dragon Riders have betrayed a direct order from Queen Rhaenyra. This is not a thing that goes over well in monarchies. Unlike she did to Daemon, where Alys seemed to be easing tensions within the Blacks, here she's inflaming them, creating a potential rift, one that we saw play out, where Hugh, Ulf, and Adam are ashamed of leaving, and Ulf gets slapped by Daemon. He will remember that. And there's actually a secret third thing that we see in episode 2. Alys ensures that Aemond One Eye arrives at Harrenhal without a fight. When Aemond lands, he goes full action hero, as Vhagar burns out the castle and Aemond kills everyone he finds on his way. It's only after Aemond slays Sir Simon Strong and his sons, rest in peace my sweet prince, he gets stabbed in the back and falls to the ground bleeding out. This is when Alys appears. Again, it's like she knew exactly what was going to happen. She hid from Aemond, she hid from the dragon flames, and was waiting for her moment. And what was that moment? What does Aemond do? In a mirror to Daemon, in a time of need, he asks Alys Rivers for help. But that's a very dangerous ask. When Daemon asked for help, Alys killed the Lord of the Riverlands, shared the prophecy of ice and fire, and united the Riverlanders under Daemon, leading to Rhaenyra taking the throne. What will she do to grant Aemond's wish for help? Now this gets back to the core question. What is she using Daemon for? How is he a weapon that she is wielding? And it's very clever how the show disguised her intentions, keeping the audience guessing. They did it by playing on the emotions of the audience. When a relationship breaks down in entertainment, there's a sort of gravity for the audience where they want what is broken repaired. Viewers generally like Daemon and Rhaenyra, they don't want them to be fighting. They really like Viserys, and one of the most praised moments is Daemon reconciling with Viserys by retrieving his crown and placing on his head. The fans want to see Viserys and Daemon make up. So when the audience sees Alys fixing those things, they assume it is therapy, as many in the fandom have called it. That Alys is altruistically righting a wrong. You know, she sees a problem and she's here to help. And that's where the confusion comes from. It's confusing the natural desire for closure and repair for what Alys wants. It's a deliberate confusion as well. The writers do not want you to understand her intentions. They want her mysterious. They keep the confusion up into episode 2. After the Battle of Fishfeed, where the Winter Wolves and the Riverlanders dumped an enormous potential blood sacrifice into the God's Eye, Alys and Daemon reconnect. I see your coming has been an omen of the end. The end of what? Of many things. and the beginning of others. I would thank you for your help, but I'm not sure what your purpose has been. I've done the queen a service. I put 40,000 rivermen at her call. Tell her I want Harrenhal. I've lived there all my long life, and I've seen it given from hand to hand, yet none seem to cherish it. Why should it not come to me? You have neither name nor title nor noble husband. The crown is not in the habit of giving out castles to midwives. Is a midwife the sum of what you think I am? I will speak with her. Perhaps there is some other reward she may extend your way. Some other reward. I ask for food and you offer me rubies. For all their worth, they will never satisfy my hunger. Go home, Daemon. Do not come back here. Remember what I've told you. Here we have Alys asking for Harrenhal as her reward and acts scorned and furious at being denied it, comparing the ruined castle and more importantly the dominion over the gods on the Isle of Faces to food, a hunger she cannot satisfy. The face value reading is that this is all she really wanted, and now she's pissed off and going to be their enemy for being denied. The thing is, Alys has already sabotaged Rhaenyra even before Daemon said no to her. She sent back the dragon riders, causing strife within their faction and potentially problems in the future. She also made sure the biggest threat to the Blacks, Aemond and Vhagar, arrived safely in her castle without a battle against 3 full-grown dragons. I do think Alys genuinely does want Harrenhal, the God's Eye, and the Isle of Faces for herself. Seeing dipshit lords one after another over her long life trample on her home and not appreciate the power and beauty of those places must be infuriating. Quick side note, did you notice she confirmed that she's hundreds of years old? I sure did. That's a future video right there. As a follower of the old gods, this isn't just a ruined castle to her, this is something very special. However, I think this is a dodge by Alys to disguise the true purpose. She's making Daemon think she just wanted to receive ownership of a castle for why she helped him, a transaction she hopes to be rewarded for. That doesn't sound like Alys. I don't believe that's the truth of her motivations. Maybe she's using something true to lie. And this gets to my take of what Alys is up to, and that gets back to the results of her aiding Daemon as well as the prophetic dream she shared with him. I pointed out that by reconnecting Rhaenyra and Daemon, as well as giving her the Riverlander army, Alys ensured that the war continues, and it doesn't end quickly. She gave Rhaenyra the tools to fight and the opening to seize the Iron Throne. That is not so much a kindness as a doom for the dragons in the realm. Think about what happens if Rhaenyra surrenders knowing she has lost all of her support. The dragons stop dancing. The Riverlanders go home. The Winter Wolves turn around and head north, pissed off they didn't die. The Dragon Seeds stand down. Jace does not die in the gullet, nor does Vermax. Sheepstealer and Rhaena, instead of accidentally causing Jace's death, are an odd footnote of how she tamed a dragon. The war ends, and most of the dragons live, even if in the aftermath their riders may not. Think back to Alys and Daemon's vision, and what you know about Game of Thrones. The dragons must die. Daemon sees it. It's a core conceit of the early part of the story that the Targaryen dragons are long dead, and that Dany's hatching of the 3 eggs in the vision are a miracle. With that, magic comes back into the world, and the Song of Ice and Fire plays itself out. Alys's goal, I believe, is following the vision that she showed Daemon, much as she seems to be by preparing Daemon to say no to Alfred Broome. That's why she's crying when she goes to show it to Daemon, regretful about what she's about to do. Another piece on the board being moved by the real player. She has to reconnect Daemon and Rhaenyra. She has to give him an army. She has to kill Grover Tully. It's the only way those visions and prophecies come true. Alys must kill the dragons. She dooms tens of thousands to their death in battle. The savaging of the poor and the innocent are all necessary for the prophecies to come true. It's the omen of the end of some things, the beginning of the others, as she says to Daemon. Remember what Helena told him inside the vision. It's all a story, you know your part. Alys knows her too. She's been reading the script longer than anyone else. And importantly, we know that it bothers her. Other than her tears at Daemon's bedside when no one is watching, she's extremely angry and passionate about Daemon's reckless barbarism against the innocence of the Brackens. There's a line that old Maester Aemond gives, years and a world away from Harrenhal and the Dance of the Dragons. Love is the death of duty. He meant it as a sign of humanity that our resolve is not as strong as our affections. In his words, it is our great glory, our great tragedy. Alys Rivers is a prime example of that. Her duty is the death of her love. She cares for Daemon, the common people, potentially even the dragons. You can see it, the tears at his bedside when there's no one to perform for before he awakes. And caring for them all is something that has extracted a toll on her. She's not giddy when she helps Daemon to the weirwood. She's steeling herself to do it. She knows where this all is going, and she knows the price that has to be paid for it. Alys befriends him and then dooms him. She has no choice. She made her weapon in Daemon Targaryen. She has to use him. Her hammer of water is crafted at the God's Eye, but there's still humanity there. Even upset, even scorned, even after she's already used him, she tells him not to come back to Harrenhal. She says that in a very upset way, but remember what she told him at their first meeting. He would die in this place. Therefore, if Daemon never returns to Harrenhal, there's a possibility that the death Alys knows is coming for him could be averted. Maybe she's trying to save him in her own way. After all, what is the life of one rogue prince against the kingdom? Everything. And here's your homework. Go rewatch any Harrenhal scene. If you hear bats or spot the black goat, Alys is doing something. Tell me in the comments which scenes you catch her in that I didn't cover. And also, Aemond just asked the Witch Queen of Harrenhal for help, and now you've seen what happens to the last Targaryen who did that. I don't think Alys is done with House Targaryen. There's also merch through the Threadless shop in the description, as well as a Patreon where you can get access to videos early, behind the scenes content, access to my fan Discord, and more. I want to thank you all very much for watching. Bye for now.